So thank you very much, Mark, for having me here today. I feel privileged to speak about that important subject. It's a real social different angle of social change that I feel need to happen in this country. And I founded Multigen Home in order to promote the concept and also help families to move and live together under one roof with the perfect constellations of a family and also separation on the construction modification side of the house.
When I first heard about this, when we first talked, I was instantly reminded of my travels in Japan, where multi-generational living has been that way for centuries. And I'm curious. I'm sure it's that way in other places, but it's not that way here in the United States. Do you have any? Is it different here in the U.S. than in Japan, for instance?
So in Japan, first of all, let's talk about Japan. Japan is a super aging country, which means there's over 20% of the baby boomers are 20% of the population and more. An interesting thing that America, the US, by 2030 expected to become a super aging country, exactly like Japan. So at this point in Japan, you have a lot of tax break and support from the government for family to live together.
Really?
Yes.
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
There's tax breaks if you
Yes.
live together like that.
Absolutely. And
Huh.
there are tax breaks in Japan, in Singapore, in many regions in Italy.
No kidding.
Recently in Canada, it's actually 2023. It passed, and the 2024 tax will already get
Huh.
some tax cuts.
Okay,
It's
sorry
not
to interrupt you,
significant.
but that was interesting. I did not know that.
Yes, yes. So to answer your question, they definitely do things in order to encourage that, in order to make family understand the importance of living together and taking care of each other, because in the end of the day, it benefits the country socially, because there you have less burden on the hospitals and the healthcare system, and it
Mm.
has so many advantages for the family and the social and the mentally and physically, that the country really supports that. And as I mentioned, in several countries as well. Here at this point, there is no tax breaks, there is no real regulation to
Mm.
motivate that, except the fact that in California now they're allowing to build ADU units, which means that there is more freedom to go ahead and build a separate unit in your house or convert and modify a specific area in your house and actually do it legal, because many of the local cities were against it. So now that's probably the only shift that I see locally, but nothing on the government and federal side.
Are there any other countries besides the ones you mentioned where this is? It feels like it's deeply culturally rooted.
Yes, yes. So I don't know about other countries. It doesn't mean that my research was 100% right, but from what I found out, these are the ones that actually supports the multi-gen living. And one of our goals here in Multigen is really to get to the legislative side and make sure that we influence the fact, because eventually people make decisions where it's financially beneficial, and we will talk about it probably on the financial benefits of multi-generation living, but it has to come from a legislative side. So this is one of my goals that I have on my flag.
Let's go back just a little bit. Were there some pivotal life events for you that got you thinking about this project and carrying this flag, so to speak?
Absolutely. I think that, behind every move like that, there is a strong personal story. So several years ago, I was totally not into caregiving space, not of this world. I come from construction, building material industry. I was executive in this world, and all I care about is my next promotion, my next career step. And so I did. I got a promotion, or I got actually a business opportunity in California. So we bought a big house, much bigger than the small houses that we had in the East Coast. And we're very excited. We make the move. And literally a few hours after we landed, we realized that all our belongings were stolen. So without getting
What?
into
Once you got
it's
here?
Once we got to California, all our belongings were stolen.
Oh,
Again, it's a whole nerve-wrack story
welcome to
for maybe a
California.
maybe for a different talk. But moving forward, we're moving in, and imagine this: you have myself, my wife, two kids, two suitcases, and a large house, much bigger than what we ever lived in. So it felt very empty. And while we are kind of digesting what just happened, I get a phone call from my mom. My dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's several years ago, and she said, "Look, I can't deal with it anymore. It's been a long time. I'm taking care of him. He's now shifting to stage 6. I'm done. Can't do that." And she knew how sensitive I am about this subject. So imagine this: I'm looking at the entire house, it's so empty, and I'm getting this phone call together with my wife. We're like, we got to find a solution. We can't let my dad goes into institute. And we realized that we can modify the house, we can place somewhere with that
Mm,
in order to create a full separation, so that it's not going to be like living with my parents. It's going to be a full separation where they will be close enough so I can, allow my dad to stay home, to age at home, and not to go
right.
to an institute. So, long story short, we convinced my mom. We start the whole process. They actually live in Israel, so it was also immigration involved in 15 hours flight. 2 days before, I'm jumping on the plane to pick them up. The house um, uh, literally went on fire. A fire broke and
Was
eliminated.
it just your house or was it one of the wildfires?
It was just a house. It
Oh,
was the
geez.
final touches of their unit. So they installed a gate. The hands of God, whoever believe in miracles or in some kind of directive following, the house literally got burned from something really silly. The bottom line is, I have 2 days to pick up my parents, and I'm making them,
And
instead of
bring them
living in this
back.
beautiful house, they're
Oh my
homeless.
gosh.
So, like every the right business decision, we say we don't stop. We don't stop. We're moving
Okay.
forward because
Okay.
we will figure this out. So we bring my dad, obviously schlepping around, and now from a original plan of separation, now it's all under one roof. Now I'm becoming immediately the
Oh,
caregiver of my dad, washing him, bathing him, cleaning him, taking care of him, together with my wife, that is amazing nurse. So she was able to guide me through some of those challenges. But that was event number one. Event number two was to manage actually my life in a family of 3 generation, how to make sure that everybody stays safe within the next few years that we
mm.
have to live in under one roof, but with no separation. So I was able to do that. And the third side was to utilize my knowledge in construction, the building world, that I was building a house that was already kind of dedicated for people that want to age in place. If it's grab bars, if it's amount of light, there's a lot of features. I don't know if you want to get into it, but a lot of features that prep the house for my parents. So
Sure.
so first of all, my mom is healthy, thank God, and my dad need those supports and everything that can make sure that he's getting old in the most dignified way and the greatest way. So that was my personal story. Now, long story, fast forward, when I'm looking back, mission accomplished. My dad is probably the happiest Alzheimer patient, stage 7. He still smiles, still kiss. He doesn't know who we are at all. But he's happy camper. My mom, I mean, was a depressive woman her entire life, but now she's like the happiest person I've ever met on her version. She's, helping with dinners and lunch and help me to feed the kids. And it's just, she gets so much sense of it. And for me as the son, and I'm looking at my parents, it's such a meaningful thing. It
Sure.
totally, it as meaningful as raising my kids. And then looking at my kids that growing as compassionate, resilient kids, it's just so much profound. And after this process, I realized I don't care about anything else. I know it worked for me. And after I realized that over 20% of the population live that way, I'm like, I want to help families to do that because I've been
Mm.
through so much and I learned so many details about that life, about the way you need to build that house, about the way you need to manage this situation. And if you do it right, you're winning on so many boxes here. So
And
so
how old
that
are your
was my
kids?
passion. My kids are 9 and 5.
So you're modeling behavior for them that will last them their entire lives. So they will see, how do you deal, how you dealt with your parents and how you deal with them, and how also how you dealt with adversity, very, very, very much adversity. So, so now Multigen is as a nonprofit that helps people transition into this kind of living. Give me an example of a recent family that you helped.
So the recent family I helped was actually a family with no, let me split it kind of to three different types of families that we're dealing with. There is the family that there's no problem, there's no issues, everything is okay, everybody's healthy. It's actually a sensitive conversation to talk about prepping their house for their seniorities because it's a bit sensitive, but still it's so important because so many people fall. So so another type of family is families that have something like I experience with a condition that's slowly changing, right? With
Mm,
Alzheimer, step one is different than one, two, and three, and four, and five, all the way to seven. Each one of those steps is so different, and the family has such a big, meaningful part here. And the last part, which is probably the saddest one, is a life event that is so immediate that the entire family need to get together in order to support that. So my recent family actually did not have any problem except the understanding that the financial part is very crucial. They have young kids in the age of 30, and they have young children as well. And obviously they cannot afford a house. We bought a financial advisor. He looked at the entire book of, their finance, because you don't want to go to a process where the family think that everything is, yeah, sure, we have the budget. So we went through this process. We looked at the finance. We offered some modification. Obviously, the immediate reaction of the parents was like, we don't need all those grab bars, and we don't need those special floor, and there's too much
oh,
light here. So that was
oh,
a bit of a challenge to go ahead
interesting.
and
Huh?
explain to them in a way that it is really not about them. I mean, like, I am also aging in place, and I am in my 40s. It doesn't matter. My eyes start to deteriorate. I don't see as well. So as you grow up, inside of yourself, you feel so young and so powerful, but the physical, your cellular level
Mhm.
is changing, and
Yeah.
therefore there must be some cautious things. You have to eliminate every step that they potentially can fall. So that was the challenge that I had with the family, but I kind of made sure that the entire family explained it. And now we're in the process also of coaching the family, where we're making the alteration in the house. So the project is ongoing, but I'm already meeting with the family, and I explaining several boundaries and several things that have to happen. Otherwise, this beautiful effort that they put together just not going to work. And there are some really, really important boundaries, not just the physical one, but also the emotional one.
Well, so I'm a boomer, and I've got, the older parents and the kids and then the grandkids, and there's a lot of dealing with them. I couldn't imagine them living here, but we'd made a promise to, like, my wife's grandmother, that she would stay in her home. And so we had caregivers, but I'm thinking how much easier it would have been had she been here or something like that. So as I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about, as you said, the conversation you have to have with them to explain things are going to be different. That's probably not unlike the conversation that people like me are having my age right now with their parents. I think it's time to downsize the house or move you into an assisted living place or a smaller apartment. Santa Barbara is full of those kinds of places that are robust and have all the kinds of things you want them to have. But you're saying that there's an alternative to that, which is have them at home. And I'm curious, what are how have you found that conversation, and what works? Like, what's the conversation that actually they go, okay, Danniel, okay, that makes sense.
At least through my experience, because most of the people don't want to live with their in-laws. I mean, we're still talking about statistic that 1 of 4 Americans live in a multi-generational household, but 3 out of 4 Americans don't. So most of the people don't even go there. So it feels, and at least from what I see in the first few families that I served, is that there is a real need from the family side to connect. Uh, I don't have families that don't like each other and think it's a bad idea, and then I'm trying to make it work. I even literally came up with a personality test to make sure that they have a good match, that the personalities are that they have an open mindset, that they have ability to communicate. Because if you have a communication problem, that's a big problem. So to begin with, that's the number one important thing. And every family is just so different, as I mentioned to you. Thank God you're in a position that everybody's okay. So this is a different part of a conversation, almost philosophical. But many of the situations, like I experienced with my dad, we got to find a solution right now. And you mentioned different facilities and different institute. I mean, we live in California, and if you want to put your dad in or your mom in a memory care or any kind of
Right.
institute, you're
Right.
talking about $10,000 to $12,000 a month, and that
Right.
is no, like, this is like base.
Right.
And when you're doing it at home and you're utilizing their daycares for Alzheimer patient, and you have some support and some help, suddenly this entire cost of taking care of your parents, of taking care of yourself, is drastically dropping. And I think I shared the story with you. When I take my dad together with my wife to the shower, he doesn't know who we are. So he's objecting and he's cursing and he's fighting with us, but we kiss him and we hug him
Yeah,
and we
sure.
give him the love. And he's like, okay, I know that I'm not being attacked. So, and this slowly we're taking them, and then we're trying to take off his clothes, and it's a whole battle again. Now, this entire process is a 30 minutes, 40 minutes process. There's no chance in the world that anybody or any institute, even if you're going to pay him $100,000 a month, will take care and they give this
Right.
compassion to my dad. And
Right.
that's what really motivates me here, because you realize that you give him a real compassion. Maybe he doesn't know, the brain is just mush. On the other hand, the emotions are still there. He smiles, he reacts. So those families don't have a time to speak. They need a solution. And I'm here to help them to provide that solution. That is not just about how to have those conversations, but also how to really create that separation.
Danniel, thank you so much for helping open our eyes to this situation. Thank you so much.